This is just the beginning of the world that I believe is coming in the next 10 years. The next 10 years is going to feel like 100 years of change. But the most successful brands are going to be the ones that use technology, not to be just a little bit better, but to completely reinvent experiences for the people they serve. So what should you do about it? Well, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is not to listen to me. I'm too old. Listen to the youngest people in your life. Listen to your kids. Listen to everyone that's not here. Look at the way your kids behave. How do they use technology? How do they use apps? What do they pay attention to? How can you increase your presence in the digital worlds where your future customers are going to be? I also want to give you I call this a mind grenade. It's like a challenge question. Just imagine this. If you were starting your career in 10 years' time, so it's 2035, what would you be doing differently than what you're doing today? What ideas in the future can you apply to your business practices today? Right, so here's the second question I want you to think about. We talked a little bit about how the world's going to change in the next 10 years. But how is AI going to change the way we work? If you think back to the world of 2020, one of the biggest changes that we all embraced was remote work. We learned we can connect with our customers and our co-workers using technology. You know, it's interesting. I spent a little time in Japan. Who's here from Japan? Okay. It's a bit shy. I can see Japan's one of my favorite countries. And I was talking to my friend in Japan. He goes, Mike, I have no idea what remote work is. He goes, during the pandemic, it was so hard for us to get people to work at retail stores. We were actually using telepresence robots. So you would go into a 7-Eleven and you'd actually see a robot like this that was being operated by someone on the other side of the country. Now, how do you feel about this? You know, if I walked into a store and I saw that robot, I'm looking straight at it. Because I've seen enough movies to know this ends badly for the humans. But it made me think, what if this whole remote work trend was not about flexibility, but about something else? What if this was the beginning of actually a new industrial revolution? Think about it. We've had 4 industrial revolutions so far. There was steam, electricity, computation in the 1950s, then there was the internet, mobile phones, the Internet of Things. What if 2020, the pandemic, was the beginning of a new industrial revolution? One powered not by traditional forms of energy, but by artificial intelligence. And if you see it this way, you start to think, well, could this be a whole new way of thinking about the value of work and the value of companies? You know, if you go back in history, there was sort of this key moment in the 1830s when they invented electricity. But it took a long time, almost 100 years, before somebody, Henry Ford, came along and said, so this electricity idea, what if, I know this is crazy, what if we don't just try to power factories differently? What if we try to design them differently too? And you may have heard of this idea of the moving assembly line. But at its heart was this insight that to really get the benefits of the new technology, you couldn't just use it the way you used things before. You had to find a new way of working, a smarter way of working. And I think what's going to happen in the next few years is that we're all going to figure out a smarter way of doing things with the benefit of this new technology. And I think this is going to happen in 4 important ways: scale, speed, sustainability, and scope. So let's think about this. Scale. Just take a minute, and I'm sure many of you working in the beauty and wellness industry for many years, think about what's changed in the last 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, the biggest cosmetics brands in the world were brands like Revlon. You know, they hired big celebrities, they did expensive marketing campaigns. People like Cindy Crawford, and they used this impossible image of beauty to sell product. 2 years ago, Revlon filed for bankruptcy. Why? The world's changed. their traditional means of retail sales was under challenge from people like you, and not just you, from entirely new brands that never existed before. You know, Kylie Jenner became a billionaire creating a cosmetic brand. She had no stores. She sold on Shopify. She outsourced production to another company. She spent no money on marketing. She just used Instagram. More recently, I don't know if you were reading, but Selena Gomez has just become a billionaire. She's now worth $1.3 billion US from her beauty brand, Rare Beauty. Why? Well, she found a new way of connecting with the community without stores, but through Instagram and critically, TikTok. She found a way of connecting with her customers and community around the values that mattered most to them, like mental health, diversity, and being accepted. She started this company in September 2020. And of course you might say these are celebrities. Celebrities can sell products. Then you've got a company like Glossier, right? This was started by a ordinary intern 10 years ago. But once again, they built their business in the digital community, digital channels like Instagram, and they completely changed the entire economics of the beauty industry. You have that power too. Because in this new world where you can leverage technology and apps to connect with your community and customers, there is no limit to what you can achieve. The second big change is speed. In this world that's coming, you have to respond faster than ever before. One of the other companies that was born out of the pandemic is something I'm sure many of you are familiar with, a company called Shein. Do any of you shop from Shein? Okay, I'm sure if you've got teenage kids, they know this company very well. Shein is amazing. So you have companies like H&M and Zara, they call it fast fashion. Shein is real-time fashion. So H&M and Zara might see a trend in Europe, in Milan, Paris. They'll have a similar, cheaper version of that outfit in 6 to 8 weeks. Shein has an algorithm that's watching TikTok and social media. They can actually take a scan of the item. They can send it to one of those 6,000 manufacturers in Shenzhen or Guangdong. They can have it in the market in 6 to 8 days at a fraction of the cost. It's incredible what they're doing. And the amazing thing is 7 years ago, Shein was a wedding dress manufacturer in Guangdong. That shows you the power of reinventing yourself in this new age. But of course, a big part of this is also sustainability, the environment. I don't know if any of you use tools like ChatGPT. Do you know every 5 questions you type in, it takes 1 bottle of water to pull the data set? So one of the biggest challenges going forward as we start to use more technology is also finding ways to get power in a more efficient and energy effective way. But the final way that business is going to be different in the future, I believe, is SWOT. Because it's not enough to do what you did yesterday a little bit better. We have to find new ways of doing things. You know, in August last year, India joined a very small club of countries that have managed to successfully land on the moon. And the amazing part of the story is not that they did it, but how they did it. I don't know if any of you saw this terrible movie that came out a few years ago. It was called Moonfall. Did any of you see this movie, Moonfall? Okay. 3 of you. So that was the problem. Hollywood spent $150 million making a movie that these 3 people watched. India spent $70 million. And they actually went to it. How did they do it? It wasn't through a cheap contact center. The Indians were very clever. They used AI, machine learning, computer vision. They basically used the latest technology to do things that no one thought was possible. And for me, this is a lesson. What can you do using technology that you could never have done before? Because if you start to imagine the future of work, for me, it's really about unlocking the new productivity potential, about being bolder about the future rather than simply repeating the past. So as a next action, this is what I would encourage you to do. Think about how you work today. What are tasks and activities that you can use technology to be more productive and more efficient? If you had more time because of technology, how would you use it? Here's a second mind way for you to think about it. Imagine a future in which robots do most of the work inside a company.